Good evening, everybody. We're going to call the Village Board meeting for September 28th, 2021 to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lana, roll call, please.
Mayor DeBold.
Here.
Trustees Brockman.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Chapman. Kirkland.
Here.
Lambert.
Here.
And Luciano.
Here. All right, we do have a quorum. We will continue forward. Are there any citizens wishing to address the Village Board? Seeing none, we will move on to this evening's consent agenda. Item number 1, approval of the regular meeting minutes for September 14th, 2021. Approval of the special committee of the whole meeting minutes for September 14th, 2021. Approval of accounts payable in the amount of $489,545.82. And item number 4, approval of a payment in the amount of $14,931.75 to Seco Construction Services for quality control testing at the new Public Works facility. Are there any items a trustee would like to discuss or have removed?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion Luciano, second Carroll. Roll call, please.
Carroll.
Yes.
Kirkland.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
Luciano.
Yes.
And Brockman.
Yes.
Motion carried. The consent agenda is approved. I do not have any other specific proclamations unless, Lana, you've received anything otherwise in the mail.
I have nothing tonight, sir.
Sounds good. Thank you. Moving on to the order of business. Number 1, we're going to have a presentation by the Southwest Water Commission, Administrator Klima, and Public Works Director Noriega.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. A couple months ago, we presented our alternative water options to you. We went through each and every option, and from that meeting, we were able to go through and kind of get a good direction, good feel from you. So with that, since then, we've been working and ongoing with what we call the Water TAG Group, which is a technical advisory group meeting with the City of Joliet and other municipalities. And what we're trying to do is, again, formulate this project here. So tonight, I've requested Ms. Swisher and Ms. O'Grady. Ms. Swisher, the Director of Utilities over for the City of Joliet, and then Ms. O'Grady with CMT, who's been one of the key engineers for the project. So they're here to give a short presentation. There'll be time for questions afterward. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, trustees, thank you very much for having us here tonight. Again, my name is Allison Swisher. I am the Director of Public Utilities for the City of Joliet. And with me is Ms. Teresa O'Grady, who is a Vice President of Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley, and she is acting as a Program Manager for the Alternative Water Source Program. And as Noriel mentioned, we're here tonight to present more information regarding the proposed Regional Water Commission that we are in the process of forming. So our agenda tonight is to give a quick program overview, and I'm going to then discuss the Water Commission formation. I'll turn it over to Teresa, who will talk about the system design and the system costs and funding. And then I'll come back and just talk about more information regarding the preliminary water supply agreement that we have negotiated with the City of Chicago. So as you are well aware, our region is faced with a groundwater shortage issue. We have been working collectively with the Illinois State Water Survey to update groundwater modeling, which has shown that the aquifer is not sustainable, and that even if Joliet does switch off the aquifer, that the surrounding communities will still eventually need an alternative source of water. Quantity is not the only issue that's facing this region. There's also water quality issues. Recent sampling conducted by the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency found that communities in this area that have shallow wells do have the presence of increasing chloride levels and PFAS. And so with both water quantity and water quality challenges, we really do need to find a new water source for the region. And so fortunately, we can come together collectively to work on this to solve this problem. And so this list of communities on the slide are the communities that we have been engaging with for the past year to work on forming a new water commission. And so that solution is this new water source from the city of Chicago. And so we will be purchasing treated Lake Michigan water from the city of Chicago. We'll be using their existing infrastructure, which currently has available capacity to provide water to the entire region. That consists of using their intake crib at 68th and Dunn, which then is conveyed to the Eugene Sawyer Water Purification Plant, and then is conveyed through a tunnel system to the Southwest Pumping Station site, which is located about 84th and Kedvale, so in the vicinity of Midway Airport. At that Southwest Pumping Station site, we will construct new pumping stations that would be owned by the proposed commission. Those pumping stations would then pump the water out to this region through approximately 30 miles of transmission main, where then it would be distributed throughout the region. This program is estimated to cost about $600 to $800 million, and that depends on the number of members and the size of the ultimate improvements. It's a very complex project from an engineering and construction perspective, but we've broken that down into eight various capital improvement projects and have a very detailed schedule of implementing all of these improvements. So our current steps here, we are currently in the process of working on preliminary engineering design. Moving into next year, we will start that final design process and then begin construction in 2025 with the ultimate goal of being able to have the new water at our residence taps in 2030. To guide us through this very complex project, we have a team of experts on board that we've been working with since the project began in 2018. This team includes members from Stantec, CMT, EEI, Strand Associates, Cornwell Engineering, Images Inc., and V3. We also have special legal counsel that has been advising us, as well as advocacy team Barnes and Thornburg that's been providing government affairs. So from day one, the city of Joliet has always envisioned this being a regional water system, and that was the direction provided by our council, was to encourage participation by as many communities as possible, because with that economies of scale, we will all realize those cost savings for our residents. So we began the outreach very early on in the process in 2019, and continued this through last year with having meetings with staff at each of the communities in the region. We evaluated multiple governance structures, and it was recommended that a water commission be formed and that there would be anticipated modifications to the existing water commission statute that would allow for modernization of financing options, as well as allowing for a multi-county type commission, which is what is envisioned with the current potential members. And so at the end of 2020, we had 12 communities who were still interested in continuing the discussion of a regional water supply. Those 12 communities are shown on this slide. The kind of dots indicate delivery points for each of those communities. So we've really focused this year on the Water Commission formation. We have had a technical advisory group made up of staff that has been meeting twice a month, so it feels like twice a week sometimes, in order to move along these discussions. So I thank you very much for having your staff participate in those meetings. We've also been having monthly mayors and managers group meetings. And so there's a lot that goes into forming a water commission. There's a lot of key documents that need to be implemented in order to form a commission. And really, again, that goal and all of the schedule for this is driven by the need to have the commission be formed in order to proceed with the construction of the program. So again, as I mentioned, right now in the fourth quarter of 2021, we have introduced legislation for the veto session that we would anticipate being approved that would allow for the Water Commission to be formed. We're currently working on key principles that would be the basis for a preliminary agreement, and that would be available, we're hoping by the end of this year. We are looking then for member communities to make a decision to join by the end of January. And that date, again, is very key in allowing for the final design efforts to begin next year. Until we know the capacity of the system, we can't proceed with the final design. So that's why the January date is super critical. Many of the communities don't currently have Lake Michigan allocations. Fortunately, Shorewood already does. So we are, having a deadline for communities to apply for that very important Lake Michigan allocation permit. And then once we do have the Lake Michigan allocations in hand by those members, then we would formally approve IGAs that would form the Water Commission. After that point, we'd be looking to have bylaws, water supply agreements, and other agreements in place that would then proceed with the commission. But the commission would be its own, public entity, and each community would be represented with one commissioner who would have one vote. So I'm going to turn it over to Teresa, who will talk about more of the detailed engineering components of the project. Oh, yes.
I just want to, Trustee Luciano, are you okay seeing that screen
Yeah, I
from
can
that
see it.
position?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Water Commission system design, and starting with the delineation of ownership. And I know there's a lot of words on the screen here, but I'll show a graphic next. I know engineers put a lot of words on screens, but the gist of it is Allison showed a graphic which showed the water coming from Chicago, from the Southwest Pumping Station to the Will County area. That water main would be owned, operated, maintained by the commission, and then the water would be brought from Chicago or pumped from Chicago, that 30-plus miles, to each of those member delivery points that Allison also showed on the slide. So as we're looking at the system would be that piping, that pumping, that storage that is along that transmission system going to each of the member delivery metering points. And so one of the things we talked about with potential commission members was having a single delivery point that would be provided by the commission as part of the overall commission costs. And then if communities wanted additional delivery points, they would then pay for the piping leading to those. And then the other part of this is then once the water goes to those metering delivering points, each system would still own, operate, and maintain their own system. So everything downstream of those metering delivery points would be the responsibility of the member. So this is a graphic that kind of shows what those words are. On the far right side of the screen there, in the black dashed lines, are the portions that would be at the Southwest Pumping Station site in Chicago. That would be the tunnel extension and connection and low-service pump station that would be constructed for this project to serve the Regional Water Commission, but would be owned and operated and maintained by the City of Chicago. And then from there, everything in green is what would be owned, operated, and maintained by the Water Commission. So you can see there's various pump stations, storage, and pipeline that then goes to the stars, which are the water delivery points, to each of the member communities. And so in the orange is the member communities, and anything improvements that would be done in those systems would be the responsibility of the member. So when we looked at how to serve the many delivery points and the range of potential commission members, we went through an exercise of hydraulic modeling, and we looked at 8 regional demand scenarios, basically. We looked at what it would be if it's Joliet and one other community, or what would it be if it's all 12 communities? How would the piping be run from Chicago to those delivery points? And we did that for a couple different reasons. One, to determine how it could be routed and sized, but also looking at costs. And so this is a graphic that just shows all those multiple configurations that were evaluated for that regional transmission main network. And of course, the final configuration will depend on the commission members who join. So in order to figure out the system sizing and routing, we had some basic design parameters that were part of the analysis. So first of all, we looked at the system capacity. As Allison alluded to, it's dependent on the members, and the members' 2050 maximum day demand is what the system was initially sized for. So looking at various transmission main design parameters such as pressure, minimum 25 psi and maximum 100 psi. But also the key part of this is the transmission main velocity. We knew in the future we wouldn't want to have the expense of running a second transmission main for any kind of growth that would occur in the area. So we looked at sizing of the transmission main such that the transmission main would accommodate 2030 average day demands at minimum velocities and build out demands at maximum velocities through the addition of just upgrades to pumping stations and the addition of pumping stations. So that was a key component of the design here. The other thing is that based on the agreement with Chicago, communities then have to have 2 times their average day demand in storage, and that's based on their IDNR allocation. So we wanted to determine that commission system design in order to identify the costs and ultimate funding associated with the program. So the commission costs through the exercise of being able to provide this information to potential member communities, we broke down the costs into 4 different categories or buckets. So they're listed here in this table, but water supply is the purchased water cost. It's what the commission would be paying the city of Chicago for, and then that would be paid for by the member communities. So it's based on the actual water used over the course of a year and the water rate. But we anticipate that would be subject to a minimum take. So basically, if a community anticipated an average day demand, they would have to take, anywhere between, 75, 80% of that on an annual basis. The capital costs then, we looked at those different routing scenarios and came up with a total capital cost for those pipelines, pump station, storage. And then we looked at how to divide those up equally or fairly amongst the potential commission members based on their percent capacity in the system as determined by their 2050 contractual maximum day demand. And then we have OM&R cost, which is operation, maintenance, and replacement costs. O&M would be based on water used and actual costs to operate the system, provide electricity, and chemical feed. And that would be based on actual water used times dollars per 1,000 gallons. There would be an operating reserve that would be established between 2025 and 2029 over 5 years. Again, would be contributed based on members' 2050 contractual maximum day demand. And then commission administration, which is the annual cost to actually run the commission, would be split equally between members. For the capital costs, we've established a funding strategy for the construction. There's a lot of construction that happens between 2025 and 2030 to bring the program online, as Allison showed the different capital improvement projects. And so we've come up with funding sources that include WIFIA. There's over approximately $740 million that has been approved by WIFIA for Joliet as part of a application for federal funding, and that could fund 49% of the total cost. We anticipate that there would be IEPA SRF funding, so low-interest loans from the state revolving fund that would fund approximately $50 million annually for the program over the 5 years. And then the remainder would be revenue bonds, and we are pursuing grants as they are available.
Right, I just want to hit some of the highlights about the agreement that was negotiated with the city of Chicago. And I do want to just acknowledge how significant the anticipated agreement with Chicago is that it's been kind of a complete change in the way the city of Chicago thinks about its wholesale water customers. So it's a new approach with a cost of service rate methodology and allows for the formation of an advisory council, and I'll discuss those in a little bit more detail later. So the City of Joliet did negotiate and approve a preliminary agreement in January of 2021. The Chicago City Council approved that in February. We are currently negotiating the final water supply agreement and anticipate finalizing that by the end of this year. So there's kind of four major categories of key terms I wanted to talk about tonight. The first one being the provision for assignment and transfer, the agreement structure and term, then the commitment to transparency and collaboration, and then lastly, the basis for cost and fees. And so, again, as I said before, we've always anticipated that the water system that is being contemplated would be a regional system. So that is an element of the preliminary agreement with Chicago, is that the agreement can be assigned to the Regional Water Commission once formed. So we were able to negotiate a 100-year agreement with the city of Chicago. Currently, their contracts have been about 40 years, but we wanted that guarantee that the contract the contract term would match the life cycle of the improvements that are being constructed. And so thus, we negotiated a 100-year agreement with automatic 10-year renewals. However, we do recognize that there could be things that change over the next 100 years. And so after 50 years, the Water Commission would be able to reopen for any terms, for any reason, and also after 50 years have the ability to terminate with 5-year advance notice. As I mentioned, one of the things historically that has been an issue with the city of Chicago is the lack of transparency and involvement of their wholesale customers. And this was one of the major issues that we brought to Chicago's attention when we were conducting these negotiations last year. And so Chicago has agreed to form an advisory council, which we composed of representatives from Chicago, the anticipated Water Commission, and their other wholesale purchasers. And so with this council, we'd have the ability to provide meaningful input and feedback to issues that go into operating the Chicago water system. It would allow for enhanced communication that has been an issue in the past, and also develop a process that the members of the advisory council can provide recommendations to Chicago for their consideration. And I think the most significant change is really the basis for costs and fees. Prior to this agreement, Chicago had in all of their agreements a uniform water rate. So everyone paid the same rate, whether you were a Chicago retail customer or a wholesale customer. And this, led to significant rate increases in the past 10 years, sometimes 15%. And so a number of wholesale customers, were not happy with the current way that rates were being calculated. So we presented that concern to Chicago, And they have, through this agreement, agreed to a cost of service methodology, whereas the Water Commission would only pay for the facilities that are attributable to providing water service to the commission. So that would only include the items that I had on the slide, such as the water purification plant, the tunnel that conveys the water to the Southwest Pumping Station site, and that intake crib. Any other projects that Chicago would have to undertake at their other water plant within their own distribution system, lead service line replacement, meter installation, any of those items that would either serve other wholesale customers or Chicago retail customer would be excluded from that cost. So we do believe that we were able to negotiate a very good but fair arrangement with Chicago for calculating costs. One additional thing was an annual rate adjustment cap, which is the lesser of cost of service, the inflation index, or a fixed 5% limit. So I felt great comfort in being able to tell my residents that the water rate from Chicago would never increase by more than 5%. So we have a lot of information available, and anyone who is interested in learning more can go to our website at rethinkwaterjoliet.org. The city has prided itself in its transparency throughout this process, and every presentation or document that has been prepared as part of this process is available on that website. And so, we're here tonight to just, again, speak of the benefits of forming a regional water commission, which does allow for all of us to, recognize economies of scale, result in lower costs to our residents, and allow for a improved constructability of a very complex project when we can all work together doing that. So if there's any questions at this time, please let us know.
We're going to have Noriel go up there with them. That way it's a team effort, and that way anybody can cover it. Let me speak real quick to that. Noriel and Mr. Plise have been very involved in this, as she mentioned, in the tag groups, as we had our little workshop and briefed our board about this. This project has been going on, it seems like, for a long time, but we are gaining traction. The Administrator Klima and myself have been jumping in on these meetings as well. So there's definitely been input, and everybody's been contributing and constructively, and it keeps making progress. So, but with that, if anybody's got any questions, this group is here to help answer some of those questions.
I got 3 questions. The increased demand, it doesn't appear Chicago has any problems of producing another 50, 60 million gallons a day, or will there have to be a lot of upgrades up there and maybe a cost that we're not aware of yet?
So right now, the Eugene Sawyer Water Purification Plant is rated at about 720 million gallons a day capacity. They're using between 300 and 400 million gallons a day. So they have plenty of capacity without requiring upgrades. Same for the 68th Street Dunn Crib and the South Tunnel. We've looked at the capacity of all those, and it's able to accommodate not only the 2050 maximum day demand of all the communities contemplated, but also the build-out demand. Yes, and that is in the preliminary agreement with Chicago.
The water after it leaves the Chicago pumping station, is there any other treatment needed that we would have to do here or along the way?
Yeah, so the only treatment we anticipate would be potentially the addition of chlorine. There would be a minimum amount of chlorine that would be provided at the delivery point, but we anticipate if it goes for 30 miles, there could be booster chlorination that would be required. Also, potentially addition of orthophosphate for corrosion control. But those are the only 2 chemical feed additions that we anticipate at this time.
Finally, that 30 miles that you're talking about, has that been laid out in plans, and is anybody working on acquiring that property for construction?
Yeah, so as part of the 2020 evaluation, we did what was called the Level 1 and Level 2 routing analysis, where we looked at the routes to try to figure out the best alignment. This year, as part of the preliminary design, we've identified all those owners, and we have made contact with them and are in current discussions with routing the transmission main along those corridors, and the permitting and other requirements that would go into that alignment. So yes, we've identified that and have done outreach to those property owners.
Thank you very much.
And just one addition, one of the great benefits of a water commission is that the water commission has the right to use any public right-of-way. So that's municipal or state, township, or county, just with giving actually only a 90-day notice. So there would not be any hangups associated with the right to use public right-of-way.
Trustee Kirkland, anything?
I just had a simple question. When we were talking about some of the communities don't have their allocation yet, is that going to, I mean, how long does that take? Is that going to hold anything up, or we'll still be able to get the January deadline?
Right, so that's why we're proposing to use this preliminary agreement structure. So a preliminary commitment would be made in January of 2022. And then there would be a commitment within that agreement, communities that do not have their Lake Michigan allocation, that they would need to submit that application by March. It does take between about 8 and 12 months to receive that allocation. And so we would be working over that next year, starting with the final design, but the formal formation of the commission would likely not happen until the first quarter of 2023.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Trustee Carroll?
Steve kind of got what I wanted, but I'm just curious, what diameter pipe are they talking about coming from Chicago out here?
Yeah, so we are looking at anywhere between 54-inch and 72-inch, depending on the number of commission members.
Okay,
So a large pipe.
yeah. Thank you.
Trustee Lambert?
My only question was answered. I was wondering what the criteria for cost was, and you basically answered that.
And then Trustee Luciano, anything?
You had mentioned about improvements in the system the member would be responsible for. Are you talking about the pipeline from your point to the community, or are you just talking about improvements past the delivery point?
Yeah, so past the metering delivery point, we do anticipate that a lot of communities right now have multiple wells that supply into a system. And if they're only being served now by a single delivery point, a community might need to make some internal distribution system improvements to get the water from that point to their other facilities. So those internal system improvements in the member community would be the responsibility of the member community.
So the total cost for a community is just the cost of whatever the whole system is, their share?
So it's the share of the commission cost plus whatever individual community costs that they would need, which would include internal distribution system modifications and potentially storage if they don't have 2 times their average day demand in storage.
One other question. You indicated, Allison, that each community had to let you know by January in order to be a member. But you say that at the same time that the commission would not totally be formed until January. So how much leeway does we have to study the commission before we have to make a decision?
So the commitment in January would be a firm commitment with limited termination, because really we have to proceed with the design of the system in 2022, and the design of the system is contingent upon the capacity that each anticipated member would need. And so, again, we are, having all the key principles identified in this preliminary agreement. We do feel that it's best that the actual members who intend to join the commission be the ones negotiating that final intergovernmental agreement. And so that's why, again, this system, while the commission would not formally be approved, or formed until 2023, we would proceed as if everyone who declares their intent in January is going to be a member.
Thank you.
And then Administrator Klima, do you or Mr. Walsh have anything you would like to ask or comment?
So, as you know, we presented all of those options to you at the water workshop that we did. And this is a focus now on the high-level engineering and the pathways, and that's engineering that got us to this point. Your questions now about where do we go from here are dependent on the legislation, which has already been formulated and for consideration at the state level right now. The membership, which obviously Teresa and Allison are very interested in because they and the engineers need to know who's in so they can design the system so that we can then get to the actual costs and everything like that. So there's a lot of work that's being done. I mean, obviously you know that Jacques and Noriel and Brian have put an Herculean effort into the engineering. Dave has joined us on multiple ventures here with the governance. So those steps are the key principles we've been discussing, the preliminary IGA, and then obviously the IGA when everybody has their allocation. So we've leaned heavily into this. We are anxiously awaiting to see what our partners are going to do so that all of the governance can be decided, and then we know who's really going to be in. And that's really where we're at. Ann and Kelly also have played an integral role with this. Obviously, Ann with the financing, Ann and Sarah in the finance department, and Kelly because we obviously know this has a lot to do with community development. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. There are, as Allison said, many exhaustive meetings going into this. You've basically been presented with all of the high-level information that we have to date. The water workshop was in depth, and at your direction, we did focus, and we are focusing on this option. So that's where we're at, and that's where we're going.
Any other questions?
I have one more.
Go ahead.
On the villages or the communities that don't elect to get in now and 2030 or 31 decide they want to come on board, do they have to negotiate with one of the existing members to take the water if they have the capacity through the village and sell it to them?
Yeah, that's correct. We are not anticipating that the commission system would be designed with excess capacity. So if communities do not decide in January to join, then there's no guarantee that there would be any capacity available at a later date. They would have to, again, work with the commission to see if any of the individual members want to give up any of the capacity that they purchased.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to give them a chance to settle back down. I know that was a lot of information to review, but again, we want to make certain that the board's up to date with all the different things that are ongoing currently. So with that, we will move on with our order of business. Business item number 2 would be a consideration for approval of the appointment of Michael Sales to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 2-year term. Quick brief highlight for everybody. Mr. Sales is here. He is a resident of the Village of Shorewood for the last 18 years. He does have 2 boys. He's over in the estates of Hidden Creek. He is a local business owner and has the interest of wanting to help be involved with shaping the future of this community. So, Mr. Sales, could you stand up just for a wave so everybody can at least kind of see you and say hello?
Interrogate? No, I'm just kidding.
If not, I'd be more than happy to take a motion to appoint him to the commission.
No questions for Mike. We'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Mike Sales to Planning and Zoning Commission for a 2-year term.
Second.
Motion Brockman, second Kirkland. Roll call, please.
Kirkland,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Luciano,
Yes.
Brockman,
Yes.
and Carroll.
Yes.
Motion carries. He's appointed. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll make certain Kelly Chrissy gets in touch with you, and Steve Brockman will make sure you have the proper contact information and get you an email so you have all those documents and
Okay, very good.
stuff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
All right, item number 3. Consideration for approval of a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Shorewood and the State of Illinois, Department of Transportation funding resolution, improvements at US 52 intersections with the I-55 ramps and east frontage. Director Noriega.
Thank you again, Mayor. So IDOT is starting to ramp up with a lot of the improvements in this area, and specifically, this is Route 52 over I-55. They're planning the scope of work will, again, using the bridge configuration today. They're not widening it, they're not reconstructing it, but using the footprint of the bridge. Their scope of work is ramp modifications, dual left turn lanes, and traffic signal upgrades. They are looking at bidding this project in January of 2022, construction in the spring through the fall of 2022. The signals are owned and maintained by IDOT, okay? But we own the emergency vehicle preemption equipment in it. So that is what, when they do the upgrade to the traffic signals, their upgrade will not, ensuring compatibility with the EVPs, that emergency vehicle preemption, that is what is required of us to upgrade as well. The signal upgrades right now with that is our share is estimated at $24,150. That is our cost, and those are for the 3 traffic signals. It is currently not in our budget, but if it is approved tonight, we will be including in our upcoming fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. And then at that time, it will not be, cannot be removed if approved tonight. So I'm looking for 2 motions tonight. The first one is the recommendation from staff to approve the IGA between IDOT and Shorewood. And then I'm also looking for an approval for the funding resolution for this $24,150 with IDOT. Any questions?
So we'll start with item number 3 being the IGA with IDOT.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Shorewood and the State of Illinois Department of Transportation funding resolution. The improvements at US Route 52 intersections with the I-55 ramps and the east frontage road.
Second.
Motion Lambert, second Carroll. Roll call, please.
Kirkland.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
Luciano.
Yes.
Brockman.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 4 is Director Noriega reference is the resolution regarding the $24,150 regarding the EVPs.
I'll make a motion to approve of a resolution authorizing the execution of an approval for a resolution for the Village of Shorewood funding obligation for the improvement at US 52 intersection with the I-55 ramps and east frontage road in the amount of $24,150.
Second.
Motion Luciano, second Kirkland. Roll call, please.
Lambert.
Yes.
Luciano.
Yes.
Brockman.
Yes.
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 Motion carries. Item number 5, consideration for approval of a professional services agreement with M.E. Simpson Company for the leak survey in the amount of $19,885. Director Noriega.
And thank you again, Mayor. This is an annual best management practice for our system. We are looking for leaks throughout our system. It is one of our, we would like to, of course, have 0 leaks in our system where there's the non-revenue water of the villages, which plays a big impact to our Lake Michigan allocation. As required by the IEPA, IDNR, we must maintain a system that is under 10%. We are currently in draft. We have not received final approval, but for our past year, we're at 7.2%, which is approximately 1.3% better than the previous year. So with that, this is a water leak survey. We did this last year. This is just for a little bit of transparency. I did present this last year with a cost of just a little over $18,000, but I presented it in a manner that it was for 2020 only. The agreement that we had executed is for 2020 and 2021. So For transparency's sake, with your confirmation, I'm requesting that you consider the contract again for Emmy Simpson for professional service to do our leak survey in the amount of $19,885 for the year 2021.
So you're saying 7% of what we pump is lost every day?
Not lost, non-revenue. So that does include leaks, that does include main breaks, but that also includes metered but not billed. Our splash parks, the non-revenue. So our splash parks are also included in that as well.
Splash Park is not metered.
Not billed.
It is metered?
It is metered. Also firefighting.
Well, just for information, how much are we losing there?
For the splash parks?
Yeah.
I apologize, I don't have that number offhand. Ms. Burkholder is checking.
During the summer months when they're active, each splash park uses between 300,000 and 400,000 gallons of water.
For the season?
No, per month.
Per month, you said? Okay.
Gallons each. Remember that water doesn't recirculate.
Right.
Maybe we need
That
to
will
look
be
at low flow.
That will be something that will be up for discussion.
Us.
Wow.
That I don't want anyone not to have fun, but that will be up for discussion when we switch to Lake
They may
Michigan
have
water.
just as much fun with the
leakage.
low flow.
That's usage.
That's usage.
It's metered but non-billed.
Right, but it's not usage. I mean, leakage.
It's not leakage, correct.
What he's asking for is a study for leakage.
For leakage.
Correct.
Correct.
Still trying to reduce that number.
Cost regardless of the study, whatever the study ends up being.
Right.
I'll make a motion for approval of a professional service agreement from Emmy Simpson Company Incorporated for the leak survey in the amount of $19,885.
Second.
Motion Luciano, second Kirkland. Roll call, please.
Luciano.
Yes.
Brockman.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Kirkland.
Yes.
And Lambert.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 6, consideration for approval of an ordinance amending Title V, Chapter 3 for the Shorewood Village Code, miscellaneous offenses. This is, Mr. the Administrator and myself, this was brought to our attention. This is a code from 1984 that hadn't been amended, and basically, short version is dress appropriately.
Indeed, it makes it no longer a violation of our village code for people to dress how they want to. Previously, it had been a violation of village code for a man to dress as a woman or a woman to dress as a man. And to bring us in alignment with state statute and federal law, we have stricken that language from our ordinance. This is just basically a housekeeping issue.
Wow.
This really is a housekeeping issue. This was brought to our attention, and we are just modifying it, updating the code.
I'll make the motion to approve an ordinance amending Title V, Chapter 3 of the Shorewood Village Code regarding miscellaneous offenses. And waive the
Waive the second.
second read, please.
Second.
Motion Lambert, second Kirkland. Roll call, please.
Brockman.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Kirkland.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
And Luciano.
Yes.
I'm glad you
right, motion.
explained it. That was not how I read this, so I'm glad you explained that.
Motion carried. Reports, move into reports real quick here. Building Department, Mr. Komorowski. No report, Mayor. Thank you. Community Development. No report, Mayor. Thank you. Finance. No report, Mayor. Thank you. Parks, Katie Fitzpatrick. I believe she's coming out.
Good evening. We had a great turnout for our September 17th showing of the Goonies at Party in the Park. The rain held out for most of the event, and we had a little bit of a sprinkle, but most of the families powered through it and stayed with us. Our next movie will be Cruella on October 8th. And we'd like to thank everyone who attended Oktoberfest over the weekend. It was our best one to date, and we hope everyone enjoyed themselves. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Christopher Burke Engineering, Lenny's Gas and Wash, Crispy Waffle, and Adam Underhill with Edward Jones. And we'd also like to thank all of the other departments who came together to help make this event a success. Thank you.
Thank you. And to touch on that, preliminary numbers, we had around 1,200-ish people come through that event this past Saturday. So, job well done.
I just have a question about the garage sales.
Yeah.
Did you get any feedback about, did we have a lot of people that had one in the spring and one in the fall, do you know, or?
Luke and I didn't run the numbers on who was duplicate sales. We had about 130 registered to sell. We didn't hear any positive or negative in regards to how well their sales went, if they made a lot of money,
So no news is good news then, I guess,
I
right?
would say.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Police Department. Thank you. Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor.
Your steps in tonight.
I am. So Public Works, of course, we played an instrumental part in the setup for the Oktoberfest. So that went well, I heard. There was a significant amount of hazardous sidewalk and curb repairs that staff has been doing throughout the entire village. We've also started some tree removals that we've discovered. More specifically, there was a couple along West Shore in the beach area, and then there were in our Shorewood Park area that we were doing some of these dead tree removals. Approximately 50-inch diameter that was removed total. And we're now going to start ramping up for getting ready for winter, so that you'll see our asphalt crews doing pothole repairs and patching throughout the village. Then if you haven't noticed, the Black Road Bridge, pedestrian bridge, is finally installed over I-55. So deconstruction, Will County Forest Preserve are now concentrating on landscaping, finishing the asphalt path, and I believe there's a little bit of guardrail and railings that still have to be completed for that. But they're still indicating end of October for a completion date on that. And if you haven't noticed, Black and Shorewood traffic signal is up and operational. Any questions?
Leaf pickup is starting soon, correct?
Yes, October 11th.
Okay.
I have a question regarding the work that IDOT's going to, it's preparing to do on Sile Road. I don't know if I should ask you that
Sure.
now or later.
Yes.
So I have just recently moved over the weekend to a duplex on Sile Road. Two of the neighbors have gotten letters from IDOT stating that IDOT's going to be in the easement, which would encompass the berm that's there and trees.
Mm-hmm.
And the residents are concerned about losing those trees and not having any break between their backyard and Sile.
The landscaping berm and trees are located within the right-of-way. It was not installed in the 20-foot landscape easement when the subdivision was built. There is a possibility of many of those trees to be removed. But as planned, as we continue to review that, we will be looking at opportunities to replant in between the new bike path or shared use path and their property lines.
Trying to keep them. We're trying to keep them.
It's going to be difficult. We are required by federal, because this is a federal funded
Right.
project possibly, the shared use path must be a minimum of, I believe it's 3 or 4 feet off the back of the curb. So when the new roadway alignment comes in, all within our, the current right-of-way, there's only so much feet or so much room to build that path on that north side. And that landscape berm is right in the middle of the path.
Oh, yeah, so they will lose that berm and the trees that are on it.
Yes.
And you can't do anything, you can't, 'cause the rest of the property is theirs, so
There's only very little room between the
Yeah, there's-
path and their right
That's
of
what I
way.
was thinking. There's hardly any room for the village to even compensate them with some new trees.
Now, on their plat, on their property itself is the 10, I think there's a 10-foot public utility easement and a 20-foot landscape easement. That's where the landscaping should be. There's a landscaping easement in their rear yard.
And will we be doing anything with that?
We could work with the homeowners that screening that we could try to provide could be replaced. So the trees that we remove, we could try to replace, but in their landscape easement. We'd have to look at that during the design of the project.
Thank you. Administrator, no report. Trustees, Trustee Brockman.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank Mike again for stepping up and replacing a 22-year veteran on our commission, so just to let you know that. But we do have a meeting on October 6th. Kelly's indicated we have 3 agenda items. PUD amendment for Shorewood Common 2 to permit construction of Raising Cane Restaurant. Variance request for Imperial Mobile Home Park and text amendment to Title 11 Land Subdivision. So should have a busy evening, October 6th, 7 o'clock here at the village. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Carroll.
No comment. No.
Trustee Chapman is absent. Trustee Kirkland.
Thank you. I just had a comment about the presence of Allison and Teresa. I appreciated them coming and giving us yet more information, different information. And every time we get a little bit more, it's nice that we're getting it kind of in chunks, at least for me, because then you can kind of absorb that and then build on what we're learning. So I appreciate that. I hope some people watched it at home because I know everyone's getting a lot of questions about the water. That's all I have.
Very good, thank you. Trustee Lambert.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
That was the only concern I had was.
No problem.
Was my neighbors.
Trustee Luciano.
I thought that you skipped someone. I just wanted to report that at the Citizens Advisory Committee, we had a presentation from the Kiwanis Club, and it was interesting. Becky Hackett gave the presentation. She told us a lot about interesting facts about the Kiwanis Club, and she did mention that they are still very active. However, she did mention now that since the pandemic, that they had changed their focus on what they do. Their main focus now is on service to children, and they're supplying, believe it or not, the biggest thing they supply is socks. It's hard to believe that, but the other thing is they supply diapers, and they still are interested in raising funds to provide their services, besides doing work at the food pantry, passing out food. She indicated they have 23 members. It's not like it used to be in the past where they would have a dinner and that you would have the Kiwanis Club meet and have a meeting. Now they all do it virtually on computers, so they don't meet. They have 23 members, and like all organizations, they're looking for help. They're not asking for volunteers to be there all the time, but they're asking for people who they can call on and see if they can help them out when they have a different thing going on. It was well received by the members. Fortunately, Becky passed the list around for volunteers and she didn't get any. But, that's what it is. But it was a good presentation for them just to learn about the different things they do. We also introduced 5 new members at that meeting. 4 of them were present, 1 wasn't able to make it. One of the things we discussed, and I passed it on to the mayor, is the voting members and the alternate members, to be reappointed and new appointments to those positions, and I believe it's going to be on the November agenda when that will happen. As Cookie mentioned about the presentation on the water, We did mention to all the members, if they would pass it out, that it was going to be televised at the village board meeting. So hopefully a lot of people got a chance to watch that presentation. The last thing I'd like to ask is if we could cancel the October meeting that's scheduled for the fourth Thursday of October and change it to November 4th. Because of obligations I have, I won't be able to make it there. So if the board would be willing to do that, I don't know if we need to make a motion or what we have to do that, but I would appreciate you considering that.
We'll follow up with everybody afterwards and
Okay.
see if there's any type of scheduling conflicts for notice and whatnot. We have plenty of time, yeah, but we can look into that.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to mention that at this point.
That's fine, thank
And
you.
basically, that's all I have at this time.
Sounds good, thank you. With that, that would be our conclusion. I'd take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Kirkland. Second Carroll. Roll call, please.
Carroll,
Yes.
Kirkland,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes?
Luciano,
Yes.
and Brockman.
Yes.
We are adjourned, thank you.